Being a Premier League manager is hard work. Sure, not as hard as my job where I just sit in this chair and talk about stuff all day. That might be the hardest job in the world. No, Premier League manager is close though. It is very, very difficult. And not the least of which because you are asked questions about everything. Everything that you do within sight of the camera. I mean, that's obviously true for a lot of people that are involved in sports at a high level. But Pep Guardiola has leaned into a new way to kind of deal with this and point out the absurdity of some of the questions that can be asked in this kind of like unending media cycle, which I am obviously a part of, right? I'm complicit in this. I'll sit on stream or I'll sit here and talk to you guys about all sorts of stuff that's going on that's probably not important at all, right? Maybe we should go outside, breathe air, touch grass. I don't need any of those things. I need football. And that is what Pep Guardiola gives me on a weekly basis, or apparently every 3 or 4 days, because the League Cup and adding more matches to the Champions League is a matter of life and death that must be seen to by UEFA and FIFA, so the people that lead those various organizations can spend a few extra days a year on a yacht someplace, just being pretentiously wealthy. But that's their prerogative. They're the people that have been put in control of this by some sort of divine intervention. Florentino Perez basically decided that they could do it, and everybody knows he's the king of the world. So that's just how this stuff works. But because of this intense spotlight and people like me and people like you all paying attention to all of this stuff all the time, it can get a little ridiculous where everybody can perceive that something's being done for a reason, but sometimes somebody is actually just doing their job. So I'm going to let you know what actually happened that got the internet talking, that got me tagged in a bunch of stuff. And that would be Pep Guardiola. This is after the match between Arsenal and Manchester City. This is Pep Guardiola and Jack Grealish. As you can see here, Pep Guardiola is absolutely leathering one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive player in British history, Jack Grealish, and his wonderful hair and his wonderful calves. He is giving him the business, not necessarily in a particularly bad way, but trying to get through to a man who can't find his hometown on a map some of the more complex tactical concepts. Now, that can be something that's very difficult, but this seems pretty amicable, right? I mean, if you've ever played in some sort of sporting event, or you've played competitive team sports at some point, you've probably been yelled at worse than this. I mean, this is not like an unreasonable hairdryer treatment. This isn't Sir Alex Ferguson like undressing a player with his voice basically in the dressing room. This is Pep Guardiola being essentially a gigantic tactics nerd and just like winding up and unleashing a barrage of tactical information that Jack Grealish will probably have to spend a week and a half digesting, right? You got to go here, and then you go here, and then you go here, and I've got this mental image of Pep Guardiola moving all of those little magnets around on the board, and you're like, oh my goodness, what is Pep Guardiola doing? But you can't understand a word he's saying. Jack Grealish probably can't understand half the words he's saying in that barrage, but clearly something that was happening particularly late in the match was on the front of Pep Guardiola's mind, and he went up to one of his players to really explain that concept. Hey, you should have done this, you should have done this, we should have been looking for this. In a future situation that looks like this, we need to look to play this ball over here. I'm imagining very normal conversations for, I don't know, one of, if not the best football manager in the world to be having with one of his players. But of course, this is not the first time Pep Guardiola has done this. Like right after the match, all of the players are coming together, and I'm assuming he's doing this. I always thought of him doing it, because it's fresh on his mind. But right, like, shoot, he's got Netflix waiting for him or Amazon Prime Video waiting for him in the locker room. He's got the cameras on the field now. When the hell is he supposed to do it, right? But of course, he's going to get asked about this because he's also done it to Holland. He's done it a few times. So we go to the post-game press conference, and we've got a particularly sassy Pep Guardiola, which is always going to deliver some of the best stuff. But here's the question and the answer up until I find a reason to talk to you again.
Can I ask you about Jack Grealish? After the game, you obviously had a chat with him on the pitch. I just wonder, we've seen you do that sort of thing with players before. What's the thinking behind speaking to a player on the pitch, or obviously with the cameras around, the crowd around, versus waiting for the dressing room?
Yeah, I do it for the cameras, for my ego.
I know you don't do it for the cameras. I'm just asking you what...
Okay, so, yeah, I'm going to be honest. I don't think anybody's in the wrong here. Right, I'm not trying to dump on the reporter. Okay, I have a degree in broadcast journalism. Right, I have a master's degree in broadcast journalism. I worked in journalism fields for years. This question is actually pretty fair. Right, you could ask this question in a much more stupid way. Right, because what he's trying to get out of it is like, is there a particular reason you choose to have that conversation right after the game on the field when most managers don't do that. Right, but you probably like that's the sort of that's the sort of question that maybe I'd love to have an answer, right? The normal answer if Pep's not in a sassy mood in that situation, I'm assuming is just going to be like, well, yeah, it's on the front of my mind. I wanted to talk to him about it right now. But Pep Guardiola is clearly tired of being asked about this sort of nonsense, and he has decided to turn on what I think players and coaches in all sports should turn on a lot more when dealing with the same sort of question over and over and over and over again. And that is just turn it into a joke. I mean, this is half of like, if you've ever been endeared by my charm, it's almost entirely because I am a unique blend of forehead and self-deprecating humor that I use to disarm you and then allow an American to talk to you about soccer or football for an extended period of time. But I disarm you first by making those jokes in the first place, right? Making fun of the bald eagles per freedom measurements or whatever I was coming up with yesterday, right? Like that sort of thing. That unlocks the door. That's the key. And then I'm like this, instead of being sheltered or offended, Pep Guardiola is playing 3D chess here. He's outflanking the journalist. He is attempting to insinuate what he believes the journalist is insinuating with the question. And it's a fair assumption for Pep, even though I don't think in this particular case that's what the journalist was doing, because that's what a lot of journalists are doing. The Pep Guardiola, when he lashes out at a player, and that's really a reach to say that he's lashing out there, he is talked about a lot. It's like, well, why is Pep doing this? Or, Haaland scores 2 goals, but Pep's yelling at him. That's crazy. Like that sort of thing. And to pretend that Pep isn't aware of that sort of discourse, to use an absolutely sensational word, it would be wishful thinking. So let's listen to the journalist try and save himself from ruin here as Pep Guardiola's come out sassy.
I know you don't do it for the cameras. I'm just asking you what your thinking is, why it's important to get that message in that moment.
I'm the famous person of the team.
I love this. I want to watch the rest of it. I know I'm going to love this. I know I love this. Okay.
Don't recognize and I need the cameras to my ego go to sleep with incredible satisfaction. So that is the reason why. So always I try to criticize the players there and let them feel that how bad they are, and especially when Erling scores 3 goals, the compliments has to be with me, not with them. That's why I use the cameras to do it there. So my advice next time, don't film us. It will not be a problem.
So this is like, obviously I do kind of feel bad for this journalist, right? He's the guy that, like, you know that game where people are sitting in front of a camera and they keep pouring water into a cup, and then eventually somebody pours the water into the cup and the water spills over the top of the cup. That's the game that's been happening with Pep and him talking to players in the field after matches for a while. This journalist happened to be the guy that poured the last drop, and then all of a sudden all the water spills out of the cup, right? The surface tension has been broken here. Pep Guardiola is... I love this. I honestly love this. I like players and coaches showing personality. I think that's why so many people like Jose Mourinho. Pep Guardiola, he lets this through a little bit every once in a while. He lets this sort of thing shine through, but you don't get it as much as I would hope that we would get it. This is amazing. Okay, this is he's saying, even whenever like Haaland scores 3 goals, I'm the most important person. I need to be on camera. That's the only reason I'm talking to them. He's trying to make a mockery of the entire media reaction to him actually attempting to coach his players like after the match. But I do think that this is absurd. All of this is absurd. It's all entirely overblown. Now, there's also a part of the internet, right, where you're just making fun of stuff, for fun, right? The problem is that there is a very blurred line on the internet between people that are legitimately like angry at Pep for yelling at Haaland after he scored 2 goals, and in the group of people that are just like, oh, isn't it funny that Pep's like yelling at Haaland after he scored 2 goals, right? The line there is very blurry. And particularly when you're Pep Guardiola and maybe you're seeing some of this reaction, it can be hard to differentiate between who's in what camp. Like, are these people that are just watching the sporting event and then having a funny reaction to it? Or are these people that are genuinely like, the hell's wrong with Pep? He's doing this, he's doing that, right? Because a lot of a good portion of the internet, 100% of my interaction with the internet is just having fun and having a good time, right? And that is a part of this welling up. And I think, the journalist in this situation probably wandered into an arena where he just didn't know he was going to be. I do think it's kind of funny we get lost in the middle here. I don't even quite know what Pep is saying.
Ask you what you're thinking.
I'm the famous person of the team, and I don't recognize and I need the cameras to my ego go to sleep with incredible satisfaction.
Like, I don't know if that sentence made complete sense, but I do know what he's saying there. Like, Incredible satisfaction. I need, what is he saying? I'm going to be a Pep translator here. This is going to be like a Key and Peele skit where I translate what Pep is actually trying to say. He's trying to say that if he doesn't have the cameras on him, he won't be able to sleep well. That the only thing that allows him to sleep at night, because he's the most famous person on the team, is if the cameras are on him. He makes a very, very good point at the end, though. I think this is something that a lot of coaches and players over the years have echoed, which is, look, the only reason this is a problem and that you're saying I'm an attention seeker is because you're the one filming it in the first place. That is a very important thing to remember. Now, on the flip side, Pep Guardiola, while he's doing that, he knows he's being filmed. Right, so it's a what came first, the chicken or the egg sort of situation. He knows that if he's talking to Grealish like that after the match, it's going to be on camera. But like I said earlier, once he heads into the dressing room, Netflix or Amazon Prime Video is going to be waiting back there to keep filming him. Every single thing this guy does, he's going to be filmed. Unless, he decides to have every tactical conversation ever in a private meeting in his office. But in which case, Prime Video's got those little cameras up in the corners, dude. They don't give you a moment they're probably following you into the bathroom, right? Like, there's no place where Pep Guardiola is going to be able to have an intense tactical conversation with one of his players and somebody's not going to get it on film or notice it, or it's going to leak out to the press or whatever. So he's got to have it at some point. He's going to have it on the field after the match because he's the coach of the team, and that's his job. Pep Guardiola is getting paid millions of dollars to go out and talk to Jack Grealish that way, or go out and talk to Erling Haaland that way, because maybe he's trying to coach up Erling Haaland so that Roy Keane doesn't sit there and call Roy, like Erling Haaland, a League Two player with the exception of his world-class goal scoring, because that's what Pep Guardiola is maybe trying to coach out of him. But he's always going to be getting these questions. Pep's very animated. He's very animated with his tactical discussions. He likes to talk about tactics. He is enthusiastic at talking about tactics. This conversation is far from over, but we've entered a new era for Pep when it comes to dealing with it. We have entered Sassy Pep. We're in a Sassy Pep era, and that's great. That's great for the world, because at least we're going to get more exciting answers to these questions instead of, well, we got to play well and play with passion and do it for the fans, and it's important, and we're just out here trying to get 3 points, and we're going to try and pick up 3 points at a time, and then we're on to the next match. We're going to try and, if things go our way, we're going to try and pick up 3 points again. This is a hell of a lot better than those canned answers. I'll take it. See you guys.